Good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see all of you. Deborah said we can start now, so I take directions well. I'm Rolinda Martinez. I'm president of Santa Ana College. On behalf of our guests, faculty, staff, board of trustees, our community, I want to welcome you to this event that gives recognition to a faculty member. And I want to emphasize that it is the highest honor that can be given to a faculty member. It's one of those, and I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again, it's our Academy Award. If you think about it, the Academy Awards, people vote for their peers. Directors vote for Outstanding Director, producers, etc. And so here we have a committee that looks at all the nominations, and it includes past recipients. It also includes members of the current Academic Senate, and they go through all of the nominations and decide who is going to be our award winner. For the first time in the history of Santa Ana College, the committee has selected a faculty member from continuing education. And in this time of budget stress, I'm under that stress every hour by the hour. I think it's really important that as an academic institution that we remember what we are about. And we are about teaching and learning. We are about doing it in an excellent way and recognizing that we have some of the most superb faculty members that our students could experience. So Rob's family, I want you to know how important this is, not just to the college, but to our profession, to really recognize teaching and learning. It is a great pleasure of mine to introduce to you the outstanding faculty member for this year, who will give his lecture, Professor of English, Robert Jenkins.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you all being here. I want to say after that about the Academy that you really like me. You really like me. Thank you. I feel good about that. And I appreciate you all being here. You know, when it's pretty intimidating, you know, thinking that I'm going to be on the stage that Glenn Doolittle was on and other recipients. I read through their talks when I was trying to figure out what to write about. And it was difficult for me because I was more and more overwhelmed. That reminds me of a story I want to tell first. This isn't in the published book, but this gives me I hope I don't do too many caveats like this because we will never get done. But I'll tell you this little story. Some of you know that I've worked and written books along with one of my partners, Stacy Johnson, who also is from continuing education. And in February a couple years ago, the publishers called me up. One of our publishers is here. And he called me, or he didn't, but one of the publishers called me up and said, "Hey, can you do a workshop in Guadalajara?" And I said, "Well, that sounds great. I'd love to do that. I'd like to get out to Guadalajara, see what it's like, and enjoy it." And I found out some neat things about Guadalajara when I was there. But I said, "That's fine. It's February." I booked my flight, didn't talk to them again until about 5 days before I was to leave. And I emailed them and said, "You know, you haven't contacted me. What do you want me to talk about?" And they, instead of responding, basically they just sent me an email. They sent me a website. So I go onto the website, and there in big letters, Rob Jenkins, keynote speaker. And it scared me to death. So what I did was I went early to the presentation. There was going to be about 350 people there. I got there about an hour early and watched people trickle in to this workshop keynote. And as I did that, I met as many people as I could. And I introduced myself. I said, "You know, if I have friends in the audience, I'll be able to do this." And so I appreciate you. I memorized about 100 names out of those 350. And so when I was able to give my talk, I was able to talk to people directly, which was great. But the reason I tell you this story is because this is becoming easier as I see so many people that I know. And I appreciate your support and your love for teaching. I really have a love for teaching. I'm really happy to be here. I love my job. I love where we work. I love our our school and what we do. It's just really exciting to be here. I also feel today, besides talking about my philosophies about teaching, is what I'm going to talk about, I also feel a responsibility to tell you a little bit about continuing education for those of you that don't know very much about us. So I'm going to interweave with what I say a little bit about our program. But let me start out by telling you a story. The only person in my family, my immediate family that isn't here is my son, David. David came back from Korea after a couple years, and he spoke perfect Korean. And he really learned the culture and had lots of friends, and said, "Dad, come back with me. Let's go meet some of the people in Korea." So I said, "Well, that's fine." And of course, I was a little nervous about it because I said, "Okay, what hotels are we going to stay out? When are we going to be where?" And he said, "No, Dad, that's not how we do it. We just go, we call somebody, say, 'Can we stay over?' And we spend 10 days that way." I was very nervous about that. But fortunately, David was there, and I wanted to learn how to speak the language. That was my first goal. And it lasted about 2 days. I had so much trouble saying "Annyeonghaseyo" and "Komsamnida," which is thank you or hello and thank you, that I pretty much just gave up. I depended on my son to make sure he went to talk to the chefs and say, "Hold off on the kimchi with my dad." And he was very helpful in that way. And on about the 8th day, we did stay at a hotel, and we were about an hour and a half away from Seoul by train. And my son, we had just come back from Seoul. My son said, "There's a girl I want to see." And I said, maybe I shouldn't go with him. So I said, "I'll stay at the hotel, and I will go down the street." I saw this place looked a little bit like an American. I had been eating so much Korean food, I needed something American. I said, hamburger place. I'll go down and get a hamburger down at the place down the street. And he went off. So I got very hungry, and I finally said, "Okay, I'm going." I go in there. Of course, nobody spoke English. And fortunately, the menu had pictures. So I said, "I want this." And the guy looked at me, and he asked me a question. And I said, as best I could with my sign language, say, I don't speak Korean. I can't help you." He spoke louder and louder. He got more and more frustrated. He got angry with me. And finally, he just gave me whatever was on the menu. It wasn't a hamburger, it was chicken, but that was okay. I sat down a little timidly and ate my chicken. I tell you that story because I experienced just a little bit of what our students experience when they come into school for the first time, and especially those in continuing education that don't speak any English. We have about 35,000 students that come to continuing education every year. That's a lot of students, and a lot of them don't speak any English. And a lot of them aren't really sure why they're there. They know that they need to learn English. Some of them have waited a long time. Some of them have just been in the United States a week. And some of them have high school diplomas, university degrees. Others have no experience, no education. Some have maybe 6 years. That's about the average, about 6 years education in their countries. And all of those students are in my class. And I think it's important to understand that, because how in the world, this is a portion of my class. We just had the great shakeout last week, and this is a picture of us hovering. Some of the students snuck away and went home. But this is my class, and all of them are different. Some of them just pick up the language like this, and others have a lot of trouble. How can I possibly teach to all of these people? What can I do to be able to do that? Let me just give you an example. This is Kim. Kim on the left, she has a degree, and she wants to be a computer programmer. She has a university degree, and she wants to be a computer programmer. Next to her is Sylvia, that has about a 6th grade education. And, I learn a lot of things from my students. One of the things, at first, Sylvia was having a lot of trouble in class. And all it took was me to sit with her for 10 minutes and talk to her about some strategy she could use to learn what I was teaching her. And all of a sudden, she is excelling. And you have these students working in groups in different ways together. It's pretty amazing to me that they can work together as they do. Ranulfo, I just learned about Ranulfo. He had a child who died. He's been in the United States 12 years, but he didn't come to school right away, and one of the reasons was because he had a child that died when he came to the United States, and it was really difficult for him. And so he's coming from a different place than Kim is, or that from Sylvia. Hong, one of my favorite students, he's very he's very, very vocal. And it's sometimes hard to understand him, but he's like a leader. I have 2 students in the back there, and they're all smiling because they know Hua. And the other day, on Thursday, Hua, all of a sudden, we were talking about music, and all of a sudden, Hua starts singing Bésame Mucho. And the class, how can that be? Then we noticed it was in French. I learned that Bésame Mucho can be sung in French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Vietnamese. And he sang it in 2 different languages. I was very impressed. We were all kind of impressed with him. But again, the students are all different. How do we meet their needs? Now, continuing education is a little different than other programs in credit in that we have a different mechanism that happens. We have open entry, open exit, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But really, we all have this kind of diversity. Maybe it's not exactly the same, but it's about learning styles and how people learn. Our classes all have these things. How do we reach these students? Students have different motivations for being in class. Some of them just want to get through the class to the next level. Others want to really understand the content, want to acquire that information, want to use it in their lives. How do we really meet all of their needs? So, today we are going to discuss the principles that can improve student learning by identifying and meeting student needs. Providing an atmosphere of success, and eventually developing a disposition toward independent learning. Okay? And I love what Dr. Martinez said at the beginning about we are a teaching and learning institution. It's really about learning. We can talk about teaching strategies all day, but if we don't understand how the students learn, then we're not going to really help them. We're not going to be there for them. So I say teaching is a byproduct of learning. Another way to say that is when we focus on instruction rather than learning, we confuse the means with the ends. Let me just give you a little background on the legend, or whatever you want to call it, for my italics. Italics with quotes means that it's direct quote. Italics with no quotes means that it's paraphrased. And then these ones that have nothing, that's me. Okay? So if you see something that you don't agree with, that's okay if it's from me. But if it's from somebody else, it's okay. You can disagree, but all right. So let's talk a little bit about motivation. Now, we're going to talk about 3 things. We're going to talk about motivation, nurturing our students, and letting them go. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about motivation. What is great about where I teach, and one of the things I really love, I'm not sure everybody loves it, but I love it, and that is that we are open entry, open exit. Why do I love that? What that means is that students can come in, they can go, they can come in the middle of the semester. We're on seat time, which means that we have to maintain 20 students in the class all the time because every week there's a census. It's not just one time. And if we don't have 20 students, we lose our class. And what we do as teachers is we have to perform. We have to meet our students' needs. If we don't, they're gone, and our class could be gone. So we need to really work with our students. So again, continuing education is a little different than credit, but all of this pertains. It's just we can see it. It's magnified in continuing education. We can see how what we do can influence our students. One of the best ways to check and see if we're effective in our teaching is through checking and seeing our students' persistence. Okay? Persistence is, in adult education, we talk about persistence and retention. Retention means how long a student stays in a program. Okay? So if they stay for a continuous amount of time, that's great. We have a statistic. We say our retention is great. That's not the same as persistence. Persistence is the internal motivation that students have to want to be there. And we see it, we recognize it, it's manifested by whether or not they can achieve their goals, or whether or not they do achieve their goals, whatever those might be. So that is what persistence is. Why is that important? If it's an internal thing by the student, how can we influence it? What can we do to help our students feel motivated and excited? What can we do to help them to persist or help them to meet their goals? The National Center for the Study of Adult Learning and Literacy came up with this 6 strategies on how to do that. I've added this ring, instructor, school, and student, around it so that we can better understand how specifically teachers can do it. But really, we have influence on all of these areas, whether it be clarity of purpose, self-efficacy, community, accessibility. But in terms of safety and quality of service, we have a direct influence on our students. So, persistence and the safety section. An environment in which learners feel, this is right from Nick Saul, an environment in which learners feel that it is okay to make mistakes, they are respected for what they know, and they are equally valued in the program regardless of race, gender, class, sexual orientation, etc. It's human nature to not be where you're not comfortable, don't you think? When I was in Korea and I went to that restaurant and I wanted to eat, if my stomach wasn't growling, I would have left. There's no way I would have been able to stay because I was so uncomfortable, but I was so hungry. So I chose what was more important to me at the time, and that was food over my discomfort. We need to present an environment where our students want to be there more than they want to sleep, than they want to eat, than they want to watch TV. We need to have that kind of environment. And when we produce that kind of environment in our classroom, the students are more comfortable and they're able to function. Student-centered instruction. Learning is more meaningful when topics are relevant to students' lives, needs, and interests, and when students are actively engaged in creating understanding and connecting to knowledge. This is called many different things: student-centered instruction, learner-centered instruction, student-centered learning. There's lots of different acronyms, but we're going to use the SCI one because that's the oldest one, and I like old. I don't know why I do, but I do. So student-centered instruction means that we are pulling from the students. Every once in a while, I'll be up in class, and I'll be teaching, and I realize, have you ever had this in your class? Have you had students starting to lose it and falling asleep? Or have you ever had students just kind of rolling their eyes or looking up at the sky or reading something? I want to avoid that. But why does that happen? That happens because I am doing all the talking. They're not getting involved and engaged. I need to get them engaged. How can I get them engaged? What can I do to do that? I think of this picture. This is not really me, but imagine this is me, and you have a bunch of students watching, and they're not getting dirty. They're not getting involved. But everybody else is watching because learning is not a spectator sport. Okay? Students do not learn much just by sitting in class, listening to teachers, memorizing prepackaged assignments, and spitting out answers. They must talk about what they are learning, write about it, relate to past experience, and apply it to their daily lives. They must make what they learn part of themselves. When we do that, we become better teachers, and our students learn. And we're going to talk a little bit about the learning process later, but students will be able to retain what they learn because they're involved and engaged. I think back to earth science, way back in those college days. I can't remember anything about it. I think back to this logic class I had. I remember something about that logic class because the teacher got me involved. And that was exciting. It was something that interested me. It was relevant to who I am. I like to work problems out and puzzles out. And so that it was good for me. The other step is quality of service. And student-centered instruction can help us there too. High-quality instruction program practices and structures that are driven by the needs of the learners and that are engaging, supportive, and relevant to their daily lives. When our students are engaged, they learn. Here are some examples of student-centered instruction. And I'm not going to go over this. There will be a printed program afterwards, and you have that, and you can read through it. But I want you to notice there's things that we can do less and more. It doesn't say good and bad. It doesn't say, no, don't do this, and yes, do this. We have to recognize that our students have all different learning styles. Our students are going to have to sometimes learn independently. They're going to have to sometimes learn without a group of people working together. They're going to have to sometimes listen to a lecture and glean what they can from it. So it's not always that we are in groups and that our student-focused groups, but we need to balance these two things and more of it on the right column. So time spent in small groups, decisions, and individual inquiry, student-focused inquiry on topics of interest in students. This is student-centered instruction. In ESL, I could stand up and I can show a picture. And I can say, hey, this is a train. And I show another picture. This is a car. And I can show lots of pictures. The students aren't engaged. Or I can say, how did you come to the United States? What did you do? Oh, and they won't maybe not know the word, but they can act it out or help the other students. What I like about student-centered instruction is collectively, our students know a lot more than we think. Collectively, most of my instruction comes from my students. And then when there's something that's missing, I add it. But what I try to do is bring my students into all instruction as much as I can and let them contribute to all of that. The second topic is nurturing students. What does that mean? When I first started teaching back several years ago, I was teaching, I taught at an elementary school, adult ed, for the school, but at one of our off-sites. We have 90 off-sites. And at night, and I would come in, I was in publishing, I'd drive down to San Diego, do some things, and then come back up, and I'd go teach my class. And I was so tired. How can I possibly teach this class? I'm so exhausted. Drove down in traffic, drove back in traffic, talked to 5, 10 different coordinators, and then come back up, and I have to teach my class. But let me tell you, my class just made me enthused again and brought some energy that I never thought I had. And it was great to do. Some of the things that I learned, my students, some of my students were working 60-hour weeks. They were working more hours than I possibly could imagine. Here I am complaining about a few hours down the street in San Diego, and they were working 60-hour weeks. My students, some students would come in an hour late. Those are the students I was worried about because I kept losing them. And I kept worrying about, what do I do to... Did you know that one of the best things that I did to help my students to keep coming was just to know their names and to say them? That's all I had to do, say their name. And all of a sudden, they were there. Oh, and then I get them engaged with a group or whatever we were doing and get them excited about being there. But at first, they'd sit in the back, they'd be quiet, they weren't involved, and they'd walk off. And that lasted 2 or 3 days, and I'd never see them again. I started feeling this responsibility. Here my students are 60 hours a week, and they're coming to my class. I got to give them something. I got to give them something. I had this feeling that they're taking their time to be here. I need to make sure that I perform. I give them something that they need. I plan, and I do that. What nurturing is really getting them engaged. And that didn't work. Let's try that again. There we go. Engaging students is nurturing them. Students need to have confidence that you know who they are, that they are learning. They have to have confidence in you that you're planning and you're prepared. They need to have relationships. They need to build relationships with other students and with you. I remember in my college days at Cal State Fullerton that I had a teacher in my Spanish class years ago who he wanted us to only know about him as a teacher. And then I had another teacher, I knew everything about him. And who did I learn more from? I had more confidence in him. I felt stronger that he was there. I felt good about it. So that's important. I'm not saying that this nurturing is like when we had children. We have 4 kids now. And they're all grown up, and one day we'll be grandparents and have little babies to hold again. I know my wife was really good at knowing my kids' needs. She was really good at it. They would cry, and I said, "Oh, the kid's crying again." And she said, "No, she's hungry." "Oh, he's angry." She would know, and I would say, "Hey, it's crying. Isn't that all the same?" But no, you recognize those needs. Adults are a little different because they can be independent and they can think for themselves. And so I want to make a distinction between nurturing, like taking over their lives, and nurturing, which I mean helping them be creative, think critically, and to be independent learners. So really, when I say nurturing students, I mean nurturing our students is not giving them everything. We are good instructors when we nurture their creativity, critical thinking skills, and independence, ultimately leading them to become independent lifelong learners. So here are a couple independent lifelong learners. And our students also will benefit when they can make decisions and be creative on their own. Our mission statement. Let me talk a little bit about our mission statement. Our mission statement is great. One of the phrases that I think is really important is that we want our students to be in the lifelong intellectual pursuit in a dynamic learning environment. What does that mean? Lifelong learners. What does that mean to us as teachers? What it means is that our responsibility doesn't stop with the content of what we're teaching. It doesn't stop with math or English or biology or history. It doesn't stop there. We have a responsibility, according to our mission statement, to help our students build interpersonal skills, to help them to work together, to learn, and help them to learn and be independent learners. Let me see how I'm doing. Okay, we're okay, I think. So this brings me to cooperative learning. What is cooperative learning? A lot of us incorporate cooperative learning. Everybody has heard that expression before. It basically means get students in groups, have them do tasks that they ultimately can't do by themselves. So they're working together to achieve something. We've heard about the different dynamics of that. For example, we have the recorder, and we have the leader, and we have the reporter, and we have these different facets. That's cooperative learning. Why is it important in the classroom? What can we do? Mary McMullen, some of us know Mary McMullen. When we engage our students in cooperative learning, they are developing cooperative skills. That's Mary McMullen. They're actually working on these interdependence that we're talking about. How do we meet the obligations we have as teachers for our students to be lifelong learners? We do cooperative learning in the classroom. We incorporate that in the classroom. She also says that some of the skills the students learn are active listening, paraphrasing, checking for understanding, resolving conflicts, building consensus, expressing appreciation. When they learn that, they begin to develop this sense of self that allows them to be beyond just a student receiving information, but the information and the knowledge comes to them. She also says that cooperative learning fosters positive interdependence and ultimately individual accountability. So the students feel an accountability. I'm going to do this. I'm going to accomplish this. This is something I can do as part of this group. All right, so I want to talk a little bit real quickly. We'll go back to this cooperative learning a little bit, but there's a lot to be said about learning styles, or learning modalities, what we call it, brain-based research, and multiple intelligences. We could talk all day about it. We don't have time to talk all day about it, so let me summarize it in 3 little sentences. Number 1, we are all different. Our students are all different. Each class we teach is different. Even in the same course, each class is different. Okay? If we are truly conscious of students' needs, our classes for the same course taught from semester to semester will be different. It won't be the same. And it must change because the students' needs necessarily change. If we are really teaching to our students' needs, and we're talking about learning and not just teaching, we have to make adjustments. And those adjustments change as our students' needs change. I think that's really important. And how do we meet that diversity then? So I've got all of these students in my class, all different levels, all different experiences, all different needs, all different modality, learning styles, all of these things. How do I meet their needs? There's something called differentiated instruction. And I pulled this off the Sacramento City Unified School District page. Students differ, they give us 3 tenets for this. Students differ in their learning profiles. Our students are all different. We just got through talking about that. Classrooms in which students are active learners, decision makers, and problem solvers are more natural and effective than those where students are served a one-size-fits-all curriculum. In other words, we have to mix it up. We have to do things different. That's not to say that we're not giving them the same content, but how we approach it becomes different. And the last one, covering information takes a back seat to making meaning out of important ideas. That doesn't mean that covering information isn't important. It's just that making meaning out of that information is more important. Okay, differentiated instruction basically says, okay, we have cooperative learning. How do we group students? What do we do to group them? In other words, we have these tasks that we ask students to do, but who's in this group? Do we let students select? Sometimes, but sometimes we want to select them, or we want to help them to select groups based on other things. Teachers who incorporate differentiated instruction allow students and their needs to shape instruction. The potential of humans as learners is maximized when there is a deliberate effort by instructors to provide opportunities for participants to make decisions regarding the learning process. So our students help us to shape instruction. That doesn't mean they help us to write the curriculum. We have standards, we have information that has to be out there. But what we emphasize, what we do with that information becomes very important. One of the things that I teach my students to do, and I'm sure all of you do this, is that when we're studying for a test, my students tend to want to study everything. But you know this already. You know this. Concentrate on this. And I have to help them to understand that, you work on those specific things that you need help with. And that's the same when you recognize the needs of your students, you emphasize those things that they mostly need. Should we teach to the middle? Okay, we're going to get back to differentiated instruction, but there's a tendency, and I have this tendency, and I think a lot of us do, to teach our students the way that we learn best. Our learning style is our teaching style. What happens? We lose students. And you see it in continuing education. We have, we'll have 40 students in the bigger sites where there's a lot of students that come in and in and in and in, and always the people waiting to come into the class. You can start with 30 students in your class, and by the end of the semester, you have a different 30 because people have dropped out, and you just pull more people in. It's open entry, open exit, so you just keep bringing more people in. That means we're teaching to the middle. We're not meeting the needs. Of course, there's other reasons. There's reasons, work and school, other school, there's family. There's a lot of issues that come along. But one of the basic reasons I'm convinced is that we teach to the middle, and we have to avoid that. How do we avoid teaching to the middle? Differentiated instruction can help us to do that. When we group people by their interests, instead of only by their abilities, learning style, skills, we group them in different ways, then we start meeting all our students' needs. It makes us, I hate to use the word facilitator because everybody says that. We are the teachers, and we facilitate. And there are times when we have to impart knowledge. But a lot of times, again, our students can help us to do that. And so when we use differentiated instruction, we become part of the big mix. Some people say, let me go back. Some people look at this and say, well, I'm doing the best I can. If I give this up, and I start trying to teach everybody, I'm going to lose control. I'm going to lose power because I want to be able to feel like I can do what I need to do. But what happens really is this is a picture of differentiating instruction. I made it. If you don't understand it, it's okay. But you've got different learning styles and different skills, and they're all mixed together. And you're in the middle. And all of a sudden, you say your instruction is limited. It's actually broader because you're touching more people's lives. You're meeting more needs, which makes you a better teacher and ensures that more people are learning. So we go back to persistence for a minute. If you follow this model, more students stay because they're not felt like they're on the fringes. We're meeting more students' needs, and that's important. Let me just talk quickly about the learning process. We're doing great. Let me talk about the learning process. I was worried about going too long, but I think we're okay. Let me just talk about the learning process just a little bit. When What do we do? What do our students need from us when we're giving them instruction? How can they glean enough from us? Well, we follow a certain process if we are good at lesson planning and figuring out what to do. First of all, we get them motivated and get them excited. So we warm up. After we warm them up, we present new material. And again, we don't present it. We get new material from our students, and then we give them whatever is lacking from us, and we help them to learn. And this becomes a time of discovery. Our students are discovering, and they're learning, and they're progressing, and they're engaged. Once we do this, we do whatever we have to manipulate this information so that it starts sinking in and it becomes meaningful to them. We check to make sure they understand, and then we have them apply it. So once they apply this information, it becomes part of them. They remember it, it becomes important. So that's what the learning process is all about. And there's something else that I like to talk about a little bit. This is more along the lines of, when we talk about acquisition, we're talking about learning, we're talking about language acquisition a lot. You've heard that before. What's the model for language acquisition? There's something I think can be said across disciplines on acquisition. But I'm going to put it in the context of language for a minute. If I'm teaching and I want my students to learn, let's say, the simple present tense, and there's the third person singular S, and I ask teachers all the time in intermediate levels, hey, I taught my student third person singular S, and they can speak well, and they go to this class and they can't do it. What happened? They didn't acquire it, they learned it. That learning is different than acquiring. Why can't I remember anything from earth science? Didn't acquire it. I learned it, and then I forgot it. When you acquire it, you don't forget it. It's there. It's part of you. It becomes part of who you are. And it doesn't matter what topic it is. We have to remember as teachers that just because our students demonstrate that they understand something does not mean that they have acquired that information. We love our professions. We love our disciplines. We love what we teach. That's why we're doing it. We want the students to walk away and say, oh, I learned something in this class that I'm never going to forget. I hope we all want that, and I think we do. Stacy Johnson and I put together this cool chart. I just love this chart. I'm very proud of this chart, so you can go, ooh, ah, all you want is great. What this shows is that we expose them to information, they learn it, we recycle and expand it, we give them more information, and one day they acquire it. If we continually recycle it, they eventually will acquire it. Why is this important? It's important because we need to recognize as teachers, and I have to remind myself all the time, that I am facilitating learning with the hopes of one day acquiring. We don't want to be frustrated with our students because they didn't get it the first time. We need to help them learn how to learn so they can get it the second time, the third time, or maybe the 10th time. There's lots of studies. One study says that an ESL student needs to hear a word and use it 12 to 20 times before they've acquired it, before they have it. Isn't that interesting? It's not like, hey, I remember that first day in my ESL class at night, and I taught my 40 vocabulary words, and I came back the next day, and they didn't know any of it. And I was so disappointed until I learned this, and this is really important. Okay, the last part is about letting go. The real question is letting go where? Where? Let them go. Where? Where are they going? Do we know? Do we know where they're going? In our program, it's a little easier because we don't have near as many disciplines as they do in credit. But here is our program for continuing education. And in the middle here, you'll see, this doesn't have, I'm sure it does. Oh, it does. Look at that. Cool. So I never use these. I think they're kind of funky, but I'll try. So here's English second language. I teach right there, beginning 2, and beginning ESL 2. I've taught beginning 3. I know a lot about beginning 3. I know what my students need to be successful in beginning 3. I need that for when I'm teaching beginning 2. I need to know where they're going, and it helps me a lot. In fact, what we do in my class is the first day of class. I have the two students back there. I think they'll recognize what I'm saying here. I ask them, what's the name of this class? And they'll say beginning ESL 2, or they'll say beginning 2. No, it's not beginning 2. They all get nervous. What? It's not beginning 2. This is preparation for beginning 3. And everything we do in the class is to help us prepare you for that next level. Are we thinking that way when we teach? This is what we need to do. What do they need in their goals? What are their goals, and what do they need to be successful outside of my class? Or is it just about our class? It's not about our class. It's about lifelong learning. How do we do that? What do we do to help them move beyond just my class? How do we remember and help them? Well, we need to know their goals. And counselors know their goals. They have an education plan, perhaps. They, in our program, they have an education plan when they're at the higher levels. But do we know? Can we help them? What can we do? What are the needs? What are our students' needs? But what are they thinking about? My students, I said, why are you here? I want to learn English. Why do you want to learn English? I want a job. And we'll hear different things. That's important to know, because that will affect how we teach. And I will just graze over this real quickly. A lot of you have heard the term SMART goals. They're goals that they make need to be specific, measurable, attainable, reasonable, and time-bound. In other words, we need to help our students formulate why they're here. And we need to know what that is, so that we can influence, or we can change our instruction to help our teachers, or help our students. That's really, really important. So defining letting go is, letting go means to give students challenging opportunities in the classroom that lead to success so they can gain confidence in their own abilities. This will be a greater benefit than anything else we can do for them. We allow them to do this by giving them opportunities to revisit their goals regularly and assess their progress. We have SLOs. SLOs are designed to help us be better teachers. That's really what SLOs are about. If our students don't know what those SLOs are, they can't assess themselves. They can't see how we're doing. I want them assessing me. I want my students assessing me. I send out 3x5 cards about every couple weeks, asking them anonymous questions. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. And I ask them questions. Like, did you like this activity? Do you prefer this activity? Is there something that you really don't like? I ask them questions. I get these 3x5 cards back, and we talk about it. So I'm being assessed. I think it's really important. And our students also need to assess themselves. Where am I? If they haven't expressed their goals, if they haven't revisited their goals regularly, they don't have a purpose for being in our class. And then they're not looking down the road. And we need them to look down the road, so we can be confident and let them go. I think about, there's a tendency in ESL, especially in the low-level ESL, as I've gone around and talked to lots of different teachers, to hold on to our students. We want them to be successful so bad. I love you, student. I want you to be happy. I want you to be successful. And we walk them along, and we give them activities, and they say, thank you, teacher. I love you, teacher. You're ready for the next level. Oh, no, teacher. I can't go. I need you, teacher. They show up at Disneyland, and they're lost, and they say, instead of looking for someone to help them, they where's my teacher? We need to let go. We need to let them move on. We need them to feel that they can be independent learners, and that's our responsibility. Part of our responsibility is to help them be independent learners. Now, I just want to say one little thing, and then we're almost done. So it wasn't too long. I think we made it right on schedule. Yay. And I feel better already. I had an opportunity not too long ago. This isn't in the written talk either, but it just reminded me of the story. Where a couple years ago, the publishers came in to videotape me. And they wanted to videotape me and my partner for a training video. So Stacy was in doing a workshop, and I was in with my classroom. And they videotaped, and I thought, oh, this is going to be fantastic and great. Sorry, Eric, but I never watched that video. I hate that video because I saw myself teach, and I was really disappointed. I said, wow, what did I do? All of a sudden, I'm talking slower. I always say, you don't talk slower. They need to understand natural language. And I'm listening to myself talking slowly. And I'm all annoyed. And I can't watch that video. I can't watch it because it's very annoying. We all need to reflect on what we do. We all need to be thinking about how we do it and what we're doing. I need something to remind me regularly about why I'm here. I get wrapped up in basic skills initiative. I get wrapped up in faculty development. I get wrapped up in flex. I get wrapped up in all our ESL issues in our department. And I need something to help me. Our school has a mission statement. Do I have a mission statement? I do. And I'm going to share it with you. I'm not saying that you should incorporate it. Of course, it's for ESL teachers. But I'm asking you to think about possibly making a mission statement for yourselves, a personal one. And then from there, you can take that mission statement and you can remind yourself regularly. Put it on your refrigerator. Put it in your classroom. Remind yourself what you're doing. So my mission statement is, my goal is to give students challenging opportunities to be successful in their language learning experience so they develop confidence and become independent lifelong learners. That's what I want to do. All of this stuff that comes around because of all the issues that we deal with every day, this is what's most important, that my students are learning, that they're confident, that they have. That's the best thing. Confidence is the number one thing our students can have. Confidence that they're going to learn and they will learn. No confidence that they're going to learn and they won't learn. Learning is what it's about. So when we motivate our students, when we check and help them persist and get them excited, when we apply good principles of teaching, student-centered instruction, cooperative learning, differentiated instruction, when we do those things and we work with our students and nurture them by helping them be creative, critical thinking people, pursuing lifelong learning, we become, our profession becomes nobler, at least to me. I feel better about what my students are doing and who they are and what part I have to play. It's not about making a paycheck. Yeah, I need it. But it's not about that. It's about being good teachers. It's about helping our students to learn. And learning comes first. Teaching comes second. I appreciate you having me today. I hope that you enjoyed it. I'm very happy that I was able to do this, and I'm very happy it's over. And thank you.
Thank you, Professor Jenkins. I think you illustrate one of a number of distinguished faculty that we have here at this campus. We, as the Board of Trustees, know that a distinguished college has a distinguished faculty. And our board takes that very seriously. Every single person, from the student assistant to the chancellor of the colleges, is hired by the Board of Trustees, and each meeting we have a list of all of their names, and we review that. And we know that we are selecting the very best people to come in contact with our students. Professor Jenkins, your name will go on this as the 22nd recipient of the annual Distinguished Faculty Award. This plaque with your name on it will hang in the library for perpetuity, for everyone to come in and to recognize your fine achievement on being a distinguished faculty member. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chappell. On behalf of the Academy of Faculty, the Academic Senate, that's it. I always wanted to say that. I'd like to congratulate you, Rob. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the Senate, I'd like to present you with this award. Thank you very much. Good. Thank you again. I'd like to introduce the last year's Distinguished Faculty Award winner, Glenn Doolittle.
Thanks, Ray. I just wanted to congratulate Rob for the speech. You know, it's interesting. We read so much and hear so much and think so much now about capital and money and all those kinds of issues. It's really nice to focus on kind of the intellectual capital that we have at the college, because that's really what endures. And to hear talk about nurturing and relationships and interdependence and enthusiasm and caring and those kinds of things, I mean, that's really what we have and what we are. And I think that sort of defines us as educators, and it defines us as people. And I think it's one of the big reasons why we're all here is because of those issues. So it's I think, particularly appropriate, the topic and the presentation and just Rob's enthusiasm and presence for what he does. So I think it's a really nice talk and very timely. And then on the issue of language, I just have to tell one quick story. Some of you know I like to travel, and I like to learn a few words in different languages, but I don't speak any well. But once I was in Leon, Mexico with my friend Javier Galvan, and I don't see Javier, so anyway, a lot of you know Javier from the Spanish department. So I was giving a talk in Leon, bunch of students. It's getting a little late in the afternoon. It's kind of a little warm. So I said, you know, es un poco tarde y yo soy un poco caliente. Place, just the students just explode in laughter. And Javier says, you want to know what you said? I said, I know what I said. You know, my own bad Spanish. It's a little getting late in the afternoon, and it's a little warm. He says, no. He says, you're getting a little excited. And I said, well, you know, it's been a few weeks here. You never know. So, but I think it's terrific that Rob is keeping people from making the kind of mistakes that I made with the language acquisition. So once again, thank you, Rob, very much for the timely presentation.
I thought you were going to say something to introduce me again, but I don't need another introduction. I'm happy. I'm so happy it's done. It's not about the money, but it's kind of nice. I appreciate you all coming. I really do. I know that you have lots of things going on, and there's a lot of things in your lives. And I am just very, again, I said at the beginning, I'm just very happy to be here as a member of this faculty and as part of a great organization. And continuing education, credit is great too, but in continuing education, because that's where I'm at, I love it, and I love my students, and I appreciate so much being part of such a fine thing. And that's it. I'm ready. Oh, something else. Oh, sure. I guess they're going to have to stand up now. My wife just rolled her eyes. My mother's on the end here, Mary Jenkins. You don't have to stand up if you don't want to, Mom. My wife, Paula. One of my sons, Brian. My youngest daughter, Kayla. My only daughter, but my youngest child. And my oldest son, Michael. And you met David on the screen. And he's in Utah, married off, and waiting for grandchildren now. All right, so thank you very much. I guess there's a reception afterwards, and there's booklets that you can get on the way out that have the lecture a little bit more formally than I did it here. So thank you.
Thank you again, Rob, and for all the dedication at the Centennial site. I would like to welcome everyone and have us transfer over to the Cesar Chavez building, and where we will hold a reception and continue this. And you may talk to Rob more directly. Thank you very much for coming. Again.